recroom meeting.
Welcome to the studio panel. I am Zizzyphus, the lead designer of RecCon Studio, here with Jay, who can introduce himself.
Hi everyone, I'm Jay. I'm a junior designer working on RecCon Studio.
Fantastic. And I'm here with a bunch of very prominent and very talented RecRoom creators who use RecRoom Studio on the regular. And introduce themselves, starting with you, Kooks. Go down the line.
G'day, I'm Cooks, or Kookaburra, but most people can't pronounce that. I've been studioing since when I first heard about Studio, just about. I heard it from a couple of people, and I'm like, I have to get in on this. And I don't know whether it was because someone recommended me or because I sent Zizzy a very long email saying why I should have it, despite the fact that was not very well known in the community at the time. But I've had my hands on the tools ever since, and I am loving it. Now a man who needs no introduction.
Yeah, I'm Afewgoodtacos. I've been here since 2016, building stuff in RecRoom. And the most recent thing I've been doing is working in RecRoom Studio, and I published a remake of a older map that I made with RecRoom Studio, and it's been a blast so far.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Tweets, aspiring game developer, but day one I heard about Studio with the launch of RecRoom Showdown, and I had to get my hands on that, see what I can do, and ever since then I've been just trying to push the limits, find weird and creative ways to approach tasks that nobody wanted to get solved, and most recent project is a little recoil-based game that if you may or may not have played, you know?
Recoil Arena, I love that one.
Hi, and my name is DJICore. I always love pushing the limits of RecRoom, so RecRoom Studio is definitely an amazing tool so far for me. And some people may know me of games like LiDAR that I've made in RecRoom and Rise of the Pixels.
Fantastic. All right, so my next question, just going to go down the line, is what inspired you to start creating in RecRoom, and how's your creative process evolved over time? Like, where did you start out and where are you now?
Do you want to go down?
He's gonna go
DJ
like.
All right.
Or you want to start with DJ?
DJICore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I've always been like a very creative person. When I first heard about RecRoom, I never, that was in like 2020. And I mean, I started just building with inventions that I didn't know anything about building yet. But slowly just trying out new stuff and circuits and everything. And yeah, I guess this is where I am now.
Yeah, I'd say ever since a young age, I've always had a knack of wanting to build stuff. Started with Lego, moved on to Minecraft, discovered all the crazy PC games like VR Chat and Rec Room. And once I found out about the Maker Pen, I've been messing around with that for the past couple of years. And I've always been wanting to get into game development, so Rec Room's kind of been my free time practice for that this whole time, as I get to be able to work on something less stressful.
Nice. Yeah, for me, I'm already creative in the industry, so I've been working in motion graphics and 3D design, and more recently augmented reality and virtual reality for the past 10 or so years or so. So I've been kind of embedded in VR culture and VR things for quite a while, and I kind of jumped on very early to Rec Room when it was just purely social experience. And then when the Maker Pen came out, or I guess the Sandbox originally that came out, that started getting a lot of customization, and then the Maker Pen came around, and that just kind of opened up the floodgates of just creative potential, which was just fantastic. But in my line of work, I'm always creating 3D assets, and then I'm always trying to find ways to be immersed in those things. And doing the work that I have done in VR previously it was just kind of like a natural fit. And so I've been able to kind of find a very robust platform for being able to build stuff and experiment with experiences and 3D design and user experience, which is my current job title is a user experience designer. So, yeah.
Okay, my creative process. Well, I'm here representing everyone who might want to use Rec Room Studio who does not have a creative process. I've been in Rec Room since 2017, just watching the incredible things that people like DJI, people like Tacos, like people like Tweets, who have phenomenal abilities to make things. I have been watching this community build incredible things for ages and had absolutely nothing to contribute. Which is one of the reasons why I was so excited about Studio, because I could not use the Maker Pen to save my life, and I still can't. But Studio lets me leverage existing skills that I have in other things to be able to help people out and just make fun and interesting things in Rec Room. So that's the that is what I'm here to say. Like with RRS, like even if you aren't creative, even if you don't have a creative bone in your body, there is still hope for you.
All right, that is an excellent segue to my next question, which is like, as game creators, we talk a lot about creating immersive and engaging experiences. How does Rec Room Studio help you do that? Feel free to chime up when you got an answer.
So we're gonna start with DJI again,
or yeah, whoever wants to, I guess, jump in for that one.
Go for it.
Yeah, I'll jump in first. So for me, for using Rec Room Studio, it's allowing me to just iterate faster. You know, it's really nice to be able to get into VR and understand space and understand positioning of things and you know, feeling how a space feels. But when you want to like start getting into a bunch of more like atmospheric kind of things, a lot more texturing, lighting conditions, all that kind of stuff, it's so much easier to get into Rec Room Studio to do that because it's leveraging Unity. So you get to leverage an established game engine, and you get to pipe that right back into this massive platform that is Rec Room. So it's such a great pairing. And I still feel like there's use for the Maker Pen, but it's in a different way now. It's more of like your multi-tool for kind of revealing your assets in context in the environments and stuff like that, and then you jump right back out, get back onto your computer and start messing with stuff again, and you know, doing all the hard work there and then shoving it back in and jumping back into VR and then reviewing everything again. So that's kind of what it's unlocked for me, is the ability to kind of iterate faster and add a lot more detail in texturing and lighting, landscaping, you know, a whole bunch of stuff. 3D modeling that is, you know, something that was very cumbersome, you know, if for someone who doesn't have a lot of modeling skills. Using the Maker Pen, it was at times really difficult for me, but I have a background in 3D modeling with a mouse or a tablet, so I could leverage those skills and bring them right back into Unity and then shove that right back into Rec Room again. So it's been such a nice pairing of all those skills that I already have, and I can have a platform to kind of deliver those back into. So that's what it's been the best for me so far. It's been able to have that kind of opened floodgate of new potential for working faster and adding a lot more detail and stuff.
Awesome. Iteration and detail. All right, who else has an answer? And
I would say to kind of iterate off of the iterating is the ease of being able to jump between Studio and Rec Room and be able to like just throw out some quick assets into a scene and see how they work, and then quickly local test and see what they look like in game, get a quick sense of scale, maybe realize, hey, that building there is a bit too large, I'm going to scale it down back in Unity or something, or maybe this asset over here doesn't really work as well as I want it to. One of the amazing parts of Rec Room Studio is the fact that you'll have a plethora of assets online and pre-built things that you can use. Say you don't have that creative experience to be able to 3D model whatever you're trying to look for, or be able to throw together fancy UI and all these crazy images and stuff. being able to use Studio allows you to take all of this stuff online already built to help game developers on their own and leverage it to be able to speed up your workflow inside of Studio and inside of Rec Room. And the jump between the two means that you're going to be spending more time working on the technicality of your own project rather than whether or not this lamppost looks as you want it to. It just really speeds up the workflow and allows you to be able to think of more creative ways to approach stuff instead of worrying on the really, really small details that can hold you back from an entire week worth of progress. Studio has really, really helped with just speeding up the process of being able to push out games as fast as possible. Even my most recent project, Recoil Arena, only took me about 6 days to develop, as most of it was just right inside of the editor and then just a little bit of testing inside of the game when I needed to.
Wow, that is fast. Fantastic.
That's funny, actually, because you say that took you 6 days. I found Rec Room Studio hasn't made me faster. It just means that I can shove more detail and stuff in, so I still take the same amount of time, but it's much more use out of that time, much more efficient use out of that time. Because I'll still spend like about 2 months or so on a room, but now it's 2 months of even more detail and content than I could have ever imagined possible. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. But yeah, you can definitely get up and running really quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, you're pushing that same time period to be able to get far more content out, whereas I'm getting this trying to go for the same content in a much shorter time period. So it's all dependent on how much you want to be able to put into your room, and with Studio it just makes it so much easier.
Yeah.
Exactly, and
Yeah,
especially
anything
being
else
able
you
to do
wanna talk
creative
about?
pivots.
Okay.
I'm just going to say, especially if you're wanting to do creative pivots, because it means like sort of the interchangeability of assets, being able to import new things easily. It means that if you want to change the entire mood of your room, you want to change the entire direction your project's going in, like you keep like 90% of your work. You don't have to go and remodel the entire thing from scratch. Like you can just chop and change with assets of a different theme, just like that. And like you can support a change in project direction with almost like no overhead.
Nice.
So that was me.
All right. Awesome. Jay, DJ?
Got any takes on
Otherwise,
this?
we'll move-
Yeah, I
takes
completely
on-
agree with all of you guys. I think you guys summed up pretty much everything that Studio has to offer.
Awesome. Cool.
Like,
All right.
even just the
Next
extensibility
question,
too.
and this is another, just kind of go with, jump in if you've got an answer. The question is, how do you approach designing custom rooms to make them stand out?
Ooh, I've got a take on this. This is something that I've actually learned from the recent development of my projects. But one thing I've been really, really leveraging is being able to bring other users into my room and test it while I'm working on it. Most of the time when I want to design a new room, I will come up with the simplest idea possible with little to no like direction. I'm not trying to plan out the whole game before I start. I want to plan out the concept of it. And as you bring people in, you start testing things, you see how they are reacting to stuff, what they understand, what they don't understand from your current work. You start to just change it. Maybe, okay, they're going over here. I want them over here more often. So you'll start to push more to get them over there. And after a bit, you've started developing something that the players are enjoying because, in a sense, those players have helped design your game just by playing it. And it really quickly allows you to build something that the players enjoy and they find really unique because they've helped influence it. Whereas instead of trying to think of something new and trying to get inside of the players' heads without discussing with them or bringing them into the project, you're using the players' minds to help develop your room, and in terms end up create something that both you enjoy and they enjoy without even realizing it.
Yeah, it's not normal that like you can do game development and have it perfectly network play while you're in the midst of making the space. So that's cool. Yeah,
Like
who
that
else?
prototype production barrier just isn't there anymore.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Rec Room's networking and the ease to be able to just quickly publish something to the game and even whip out the maker pen and make changes live while there's players in there allows you to just speed up processes faster than you can ever imagine. So many people are scared to bring players into their room because they fear like, oh, they're not going to like what I'm working on, or maybe my idea isn't that great. And my number one tip is to just not fall in love with your work. Be open to the fact that it can change on a dime. Recoil Arena, probably 80% of that game was designed by the players. The only concept I had going into that entire project is knock somebody off a map. Everything else is just from people asking me to add stuff, and I would change numbers on the fly and do this and that. They're like, yo, you should put this over here. I just hop into Studio, quickly add it while they're playing the game, submit and upload, and while they're all messing around and thinking of new stuff for me to change, there is a new change already on the way without any holdback or setbacks or anything. And once you can accept that your ideas are going to change, it really helps you start developing something that you can enjoy.
Cool. All right. Yeah, other folks, to kind of repeat the theme of the question is, how do you design your rooms to stand out?
They kind of stand out by virtue of being made with the RRS toolset to begin with, right? We have that many capabilities within RRS because we can leverage nearly the full power of Unity that you can instantly see from a thumbnail. Like, hey, hold on, like this isn't MakePen. What's this? This looks interesting. Like, obviously, sort of, we've got completely new capabilities in terms of how we design room thumbnails, which we've seen people use incredibly creatively and less creatively, but still effectively. In many cases, there's so many different ways to do this. But in terms of design
I guess
decisions,
I'll ask, just going down the line, what's your favorite Unity creation feature that like you couldn't use before that you can use now in your rooms? Pick only one.
Unity animators, absolutely fantastic. Just
Animator.
any aspect of your scene, being able to change lighting features, like turn an effect on and off, like in a given sequence, even being able to scale something at runtime. What? Just nearly the entire feature set of the engine is available for your control of animators.
Yeah, poor animation tool for from MakerPen. Like it did a good job. It tried, but man, it's so nice being in Rec Room Studio and being able to just have a nice timeline with keyframes and all that kind of stuff that's well established. And man, you can just churn out animations a lot faster for sure. Yeah. I'd say for me though, particles. Particles are like the biggest thing. Like, man, I've made snow out of falling leaves with the emitter tool in Rec Room. You know, it's like just desperately wanting anything that we can have that just makes it a little bit different. We can add a little more atmosphere to our rooms. So now it's just like, it's just crazy. I can just make anything under the sun, whatever I want. And I have an emitter now that I can control and, you know, do all these kind of crazy effects and even use 3D meshes and all this other kind of crazy nonsense that we're using. So that's by far and away that or like textures, but like for me it's been emitters because it's all about atmosphere for me. So
yeah, man, you guys are like ripping these right out of my head right now. I would say, without iterating off of what we've already discussed, one of my favorite is got to be the use of prefabs in the scene, which, to anybody who doesn't know what prefab is, it's kind of like a circuit board with CV2, where you can put some stuff in it, clone it around, and they're all copies of each other. But the difference is that with this, it works with objects, works with anything, and any changes you make to one apply to all of the rest. It allows me to be able to quickly throw a ton of weapons into a scene that all derive off the same prefab, and oh no, down the line I got 20 weapons right here and I forgot to make a little adjustment to them. All I have to do is adjust the main one and every single one of them follows suit. It speeds up the workflow so much, and it makes it super fast and easy to iterate on things. Oh no, I messed up a particle system on the fire animation. Change it on the main one and every single weapon now has that applied on it. It's just such a time saver, makes things so
That's pretty
easy. It's a
powerful.
weird concept to grasp at first, but once you get that little mindset of like, you make one change and everything else follows through with that same change, it can just really quickly speed things up.
Awesome.
Magic.
Jay?
So for me, probably one of my favorite features of RecCon Studio is being able to optimize your room a lot. Like for example, LODs and occlusion culling. Like I said earlier, I love to push the limit, so I always like to just build insanely big projects, and optimization helps a lot with being able to run it on low-end platforms like the Quest or phones and stuff like that.
Awesome. Awesome. Jay, what's your favorite feature?
For me, it would probably be Canvas's UI and HUDs. I absolutely love being able to give a room an originality with custom UIs and HUDs, and Murder V3 has definitely been using this a lot. I've been the one designing my UI and my HUD in this room, and it's been awesome so far.
All right. Awesome. DJICore, you kind of stumbled in my next question, which is about, is there something particularly ambitious or challenging that you've taken on with RecRoom Studio? What was that thing and what did you learn from it?
So recently, well, about 2 months ago, I and someone else that I work with, Unturned, we've started working on a project it's called Last Man Standing, but it's basically a completely new version of Rec Royale. So it's a full-on working battle royale game, and we're actually almost done with it. We're currently in the testing phase, and it will hopefully be released this month.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Fingers crossed.
I would say one of my more recent, it's still a project working on in the background. I'm about a week into development, still going through my quick wacky iterations with testers and stuff like that, but I'm working on a version of like a gun game kind of project where you have one single weapon, and every time you eliminate somebody, that weapon in your hand is going to change. And I've been leveraging a lot of the features we mentioned previously with animators and particle systems and wacky CV2 stuff and the prefabs to be able to create a system that allows for custom bullets on the gun, no longer relying off the projectile launcher. I can use my own custom effects on this weapon and mix that with the brand new data tables that have been added to CV2, and now I have a system with just a single number. I can change the weapon you're holding with its looks, its animations, the position of the firing, the damage, all of the stats on this weapon can now be controlled with just this one little thing. It's been a crazy ride trying to design the system to be able to get it work as smoothly as possible, while also being able to add to it as I go. I can freely add more weapons to this and use the animator to cycle through what's active. And as I add things, they will apply to all the existing weapons, allowing for a really, really seamless change without having to drop something and grab something new. It's everything in the game just handled with that one item that you're holding. And I absolutely wouldn't be able to make anything close to this without Studio.
Cool. Tacos are
Since they-
big ambitious projects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's one that's still being worked on, but the one I most recently did was the Taco Cove remake. So previously I made that in 2018, and that was a ambient room at the beach where you could launch fireworks off. Some people might remember it. But with RecRoom Studio, I was able to add so much more detail into it, so much more customization, much more interaction mechanics, and also a lot more particles for these things. I can have dynamic lighting, casting, light across the beach and stuff. Beautiful sunset imagery, nice dynamic fog and stuff like that, and even have that show up pretty well in Quest as well, which I was really excited about. I learned so much from that one project, trying to recreate an older room in RecRoom Studio. Learned so much about what's the capabilities are with lighting. You learn what you can do with texturing, and I learned a lot about how much lower end platforms can actually handle from Unity. we just have to be mindful about, like, usually whenever it comes down to like physics, that's usually the biggest thing that bottlenecks everything. I was able to put in 4K textures and you know, literally thousands of particles being emitted from fireworks, and you know, I had most people on their respective platforms having no issues at all in my room, which has been fantastic. So it's been so much fun. I had so much fun working on that and trying to figure it out. It was such a good project to kind of just get myself really stuck into Rec Room Studio. The other one, though, is the project I've been working on for like 4 years with Harrison, which is called Magic Originally a room that won an award way back in like 2019 with CV1, and now every iteration, CV2, and then now Rec Room Studio, we've kind of like rebuilt the project every single time that each one of these like new advances have happened. But that's allowing us to do a whole ton of new things, CV2 and also Rec Room Studio, with all the customization of particles and lighting and logic that we can throw in. So this is a magic-based game, so it's a PvP, fast-paced PvP, but you literally get to, like, with your hands, throw fireballs and lightning and raise rock barriers in front of you and stuff like that. But it's kind of in a more futuristic style, so it's kind of like a cross between like Destiny and Bungie, like Halo, but with magic kind of mixed in there, kind of pulling from a bunch of different inspirations. So we're still working on that, but this is the most progress we've made with so much more that we've wanted in it since Rec Room Studio came out. So we decided to rebuild it from scratch since Rec Room Studio came out, and it's been a great time working on it, and adding a lot of cool functionality
I'm
to
going to
it.
ask you the question, every game designer dreads, because it popped up in the chat. When's the new Magic K coming out?
Yeah. Oh man.
Promotion time.
When is
Someday.
Star Citizen coming out of beta?
I don't know. It's a passion project between Harrison and I. So it's like we both have full-time jobs, and so we only get to work on this when we actually have some time to work on it. That's why it's taken so long. Is that plus also like rebuilding it for every different major iteration of like CV1, CV2, and Rec Room Studio. That's like 4.5, 5 years of reiterating over the things that we've built and adding new stuff because we can do it now better than we ever did before. Hopefully this is the final one that we can like finally ship this one because it's Rec Room Studio, and it's like it can't get better than this. Now we have like a full game engine to work
I have
with.
some bad news
Just
for
wanted to
you
throw
because
out-
of Rooms 2.0 being announced yesterday.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
I just wanted to throw out there real quick that this is like one of those amazing opportunities for people to work towards getting Studio, because inside of the official Rec Room Studio Discord, you can actually see updates on the progress of Magic 8 and stuff, and be able to watch it be developed. So it's just more reason to work towards that goal.
That's fun.
Absolutely.
Kooks, ambitious projects.
I've had the privilege in the last little while of beginning work on a MMO style game, leveraging Rec Room Studio with Marisa, Dezo, and soon to be a couple of others. But it's been so much fun just seeing the possibilities that Studio gives us in terms of how much variety and how much gameplay we can fit within a single room. Because we have the ability now to even just using things like being able to write scripts in the editor to like make like tasks that would be incredibly arduous, like placing a collider on every single tree on a terrain, like gives us the opportunity to just make things like that happen instantaneously. And it's been incredible to see the collaborative power that Studio gives you relative to something like VR chat or the like UEFN, just being able to rapidly iterate with the people that you're working with and just give you an avenue to discuss, hey, we want this here, we want this here, we want this here. And it's there, like within minutes. It's been so exciting. It's been a challenge to cut the stuff we want to do down to something that's actually manageable within the time frame, because there's so many new capabilities that we have now. But it's been an incredible project to work on so far, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
Awesome. Okay, the next question is, what advice would you give to somebody new who wants to start creating in Rec Room Studio? Like, they haven't used Unity before. Where do they start?
Patience. The number one thing you need for Rec Room Studio is
Yes.
patience. Understanding, you can pick up. Like how Unity works, you can pick up. If you already build in Rec Room, you've got a good head start on the tools. There are some fantastic tutorial content out there, like made by people like myself, like Kambi, Dan Benan. You'll find some incredible resources on the Studio Discord for getting started, but give yourself time. This is an entirely new way to think about creation, and it is incredibly powerful, and there's a vast array of options available to you, but that also makes it very daunting. And waiting for builds takes a long time. So just make sure you've got a handy supply of your favorite snacks and beverage, and you're ready to wait. Wait for the rooms to build themselves from a technical perspective, and just be ready to give yourself all the time you need to understand things.
Totally.
Yeah,
It
to
also starts with
build
how
on
long
that.
it just takes Unity to install.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
God, Unity takes forever.
Be ready for
to install.
everything to go wrong. Every
Good
time.
Lord. And that's not
It's
something
an
that's like
entire game engine. You're
yeah,
installing
that's
the
not Rec
groundworks
Room
of this
Studio's
game.
fault. Yeah, it's not Rec Room
Mhm.
Studio's fault for that. It's just
Absolutely.
Unity. It's just
That's
like
just Unity.
I need to build everything in the world for you real quick. Give me 2 minutes, and you're like, oh, come on. Every time you have to open it up. But that's just Unity. But yeah, I would say for anyone who wants to like start out with this, I would say, you know, start watching some YouTube tutorials on Unity in general, like how to get started with it, how to build it. If you honestly have experience building a simple game from a tutorial in Unity without ever touching Rec Room Studio first, you would actually, I think, have a better mind space for coming into it. So I would say get started with that first, because you're ultimately going to be working with this game engine. This is established industry standard game engine. There's a whole bunch of principles in there that you need to understand and learn about. So get up to speed on those first, and then start working really small. You know, we all have amazing ideas that pop into our heads once we realize all the potential, but it really sets you up for failure if you want to try and pursue those immediately out of the gate. You really want to start really small. Take more of an approach like what Tweets has been doing, which is like starting really small, start with a very simple concept and iterate and build on it, because you have the tools to do that now. So I'd say like really start with that first. Start with very simple mechanics, like, you know, having fun with some physics, and then seeing, you know, how we can maybe turn that into a game or something like that. But that's how I would say to get started, is like, you know, brush up on Unity as a tool, because it's free. You can download it. You can just start working with it now and get familiar with it. And then, you know, start building things in Rec Room, because that's how you can build out a portfolio, and you can also have that be how you get discovered and also get brought into Rec Room Studios. Or maybe that's changed now. I guess now it's open to everyone at on an access level, but then you can kind of like upgrade to being able to do builds and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I would say. I would say like start simple, learn some of the fundamentals of this other game engine, and then you know, yeah, start small and then work up.
Or even start with a project you already have and just add sort of studio features to it as you discover them. Like, let your work evolve over time.
One of my biggest pieces of advice, this kind of applies to all works of development, not just Rec Room Studio, whether you want to use the Maker Pen or learn CV2 or CV1, whatever it is. My biggest point to
CV1.
people is absolutely that too. Yeah, don't no. But absolutely do not be questions. Don't be afraid to be wrong about something. Don't be afraid to change up how things going, because in reality, even most experienced developers, probably everybody in this booth right now, we ask questions all the time. We learn new stuff all the time and everything we can. And places like Google, YouTube, and all that, one of the biggest misconceptions about Studio is that it's its own thing that Rec Room develops. It's not. It's just a tiny add-on to Unity with a few extra integrations to Rec Room. Most of the things that you struggle with, or most of the things you run into problems with inside of Rec Room Studio, are just base Unity things, like materials and textures, or working with animations. All of these are things that aren't exclusive to Studio, and there's plenty of resources resources online to help you learn them without having to rly on somebody who's either making a studio-specific video or somebody in the studio Discord. But even that, you always have access to the Rec Room Studio Discord in the help channel to be able to create a post to help gather people who can assist you with the problem, or even just use the channel's forum system to search and locate the specific issue you're having. Asking questions and being able to take advice from people and change the way you approach stuff based on just tips from others can really, really quickly improve your workflow and whatnot, but also leave you open to wanting to learn more stuff as you get experience. Because in reality, nobody's going to be able to learn every single thing about this software, and even some of the developers themselves learn stuff from the community, and the community can learn from them. Like, we're all here as just a boiling pot of information to be able to help each other out, and do not be afraid to stick your hand in. Trust me, it hurts a lot less than you'd think for boiling water.
Yeah, I will say that, yeah, one of my favorite things, like, Unity has so many different ways you can accomplish the same goal. And, like, somebody asked the question, like, hey, how do I get the lights to look a certain way in my room? And, yeah, people have, like, 5-6 different answers, and I learned a lot. It's awesome. Jay, what is your advice to new folks?
My advice is don't be afraid to look up Unity documentation as well. There's a lot in common with Rec Room Studio. You'll learn a lot from it, more than you actually might think. And yeah, we also have documentation ourselves, thanks to Alexa. Alexa made an awesome document that we're also updating with them. Yeah, just find resources with documentation either from Unity official documentation or Rec Room Studio documentation.
DJICore, advice to newbies.
All right, so what I would say is don't be afraid to try out new things. Like, I know the Unity editor in itself can look very difficult at first, but just try out some simple things, put down a cube or just build some simple things in Unity, and that's the best way to learn, just trying out new things.
Alright, awesome. Okay, I'm going to go to some audience questions. I popped up a while ago, but the question was, do you still like using the Maker Pen?
Ooh,
Oh,
I've got a take on this one. One of the big things that people assume is, like, with Rec Room Studio, that you can just, now you can do everything inside a studio and, like, code and do all this and that. Rec Room Studio is more of just a visual aid. It allows you to change the look of your game or control assets to be able to help you control like UI and do all these things, but in reality, Rec Room Studio and the rooms created with it rely heavily on the Maker Pen, to the point where I'd recommend you to be able to pick up a Maker Pen right now, start learning CV2, and generally just moving around objects and messing around with stuff, because almost all of the stuff you see with Rec Room Studio in the background is being controlled with that Maker Pen. The amount of times you'll hop into game and work on, like, putting some code together to be able to control the stuff you made with Studio, like, without the Maker Pen, Studio is pretty much as good as just putting some visuals into a map and calling it done. But the moment you want to get into games, interactions, anything like that, you're going right back to your roots and working with the Maker Pen to help do that. The Maker Pen's honestly still really fun. You can build things even. There are creators who have found ways to be able to build something with a Maker Pen using the shapes or tubes and stuff like that, and actually export it and turn it into something you can use with Studio. So you're not even limited to, like, oh, if I create something with the Maker Pen, like out of tube or whatever, you can still make that work with Studio. You can still turn it into something to actually use inside of the editor. The limitations are just thrown out the window, and you can just, the Maker Pen becomes a gateway to just anything you can think of.
You can take those 10,000 cubes you have in one container, and you can import them, merge them all into one cube, and your frames don't die. It's incredible.
That's
You worried
that's one
about
thing that's
ink
changed
with
for
the
me.
room around you? Make it a Studio
Yeah.
object. They don't use ink.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The Maker Pen tool is, like, kind of changed for me now. It's like, it's more of a prototyping tool now. I think that's one thing we should probably address though is with Rec Room Studio. There's no like C# scripting with Rec Room Studio specifically. So if you still want to have things happen in your room, control things, do any kind of gaming logic, any kind of stuff, that's still all very much powered with CV2 in Rec Room. So at some point with Rec Room Studio, you will have to go back into Rec Room and actually do coding, via CV2 to actually get things going and working. But I found for me now, it's much more about jumping into VR to actually lay out and block out environments and scenes and get scale and sense of depth and everything appropriate. Then I can go jump out to Rec Room Studio, take those MakerPen objects, export them to Blender, and then start modeling around that. I have all the scale and everything that I needed, and I can build everything around it, build the model that I want with all the texturing and stuff that I want, and I can bring it right back into Rec Room and swap out the placeholder assets that I had built. So it's kind of a nice duality here of like being able to jump in, be fully immersed in building your environment and understand the scale and depth and detail of the scene, and then jumping right out and then facilitating all the more nuanced detail of those models and stuff like that.
Awesome. I got a quick question, just answer from the audience, which is, can you use Unity Asset Store assets? Like, is that license valid for Rec Room? I am not a lawyer, so do not take my statement as legal advice, but my understanding is that the standard common Unity Asset Store license, so when you look at the Asset Store, there will be a column on the right that says what license it has. If it has the standard Unity Store license, you can totally use those assets. That is the vast majority of Unity Asset Store stuff. Occasionally you'll see something that has a restricted license, you have to look at the details of that, but the normal license totally can. So feel free to buy Unity Asset Store stuff, support those artists, and put them in rooms.
They are there to assist you. Don't be afraid to use them.
Yeah, do not be afraid to use them. I am a bit of a junkie, Unity Asset Store junkie, so.
Heck yeah.
Feel that.
Okay, somebody asked, I'll try to paraphrase as best I can, which is, how has access to Rec Room Studio influenced your creative process compared to before Rec Room Studio?
How does it influence our creative process? So affected it in some way or improved it?
Yeah. Has it changed what you want to make, how you make things?
Oh yeah, I mean it's completely. I mean, hopefully by now you've heard so much of us gushing about it. I mean, just like it's completely changed the whole dynamic of what's possible, the kinds of textures, the amount of emitters, the customization of everything that you can think of that you want to shove into Rec Room now is completely possible. If you ever felt held back by something that was lacking from the MakerPen, it is definitely possible within Rec Room Studio. You can bring it right back into Rec Room. So it's just a, it's like shackles being released from you. You're just free to just do whatever you want, as long as it doesn't require C# code.
Yeah, I absolutely feel that before I got my hands on Rec Room Studio, I was reaching that point with the MakerPen where anytime I could think of a project, I could very, very distinctly tell exactly what would or wouldn't be possible with it, how long it'll take, and all this. Like, it was a very good understanding of how much I was limited, to the point where it made it a little difficult to come up with new game ideas, because every time something would pop in my head, I'd be like, oh wait, no, I can't do this, and that would pretty much break the game. Whereas now with Rec Room Studio, I am discovering things almost daily that can either be used to break a limitation that I thought existed, or even an entirely new tool altogether to develop new stuff. I could have never dreamed about being able to make a game where you can change the look of a weapon and the skins on it in real time and create UIs of shops and stuff like that and store all this stuff. And with Rec Room Studio, every time I think of an idea for a game, I am like, well, great, now I want to go try and build it because I have no idea if it's even possible or not. Because I could probably think, man, there's no possible way I could build that in Rec Room. And then I start working on it and find new ways to approach it. And soon I have done what I thought I couldn't do, plus more. So it's really, really opened up the creative workflow and just made it so much easier to want to work on new projects. Because I have no idea what I can do, and I'm excited to see what's possible.
Anybody else want to chime in on that question? Otherwise, we'll dig up another. Jay, have you seen any audience questions you want to ask? I mean, we've got a lot of questions. Which is easier? RecRoom's easier to learn, RecRoom Studio or MakerPen?
I mean, the MakerPen is a
boy.
bastion of intuitiveness relative to the Unity toolset. Like, the RecRoom designers have done a fantastic job of making it accessible. And if you don't know either, starting with the MakerPen is always good because it will introduce you to just often concepts that you wouldn't have come across before. Like, even just look the way that MakerPen handles transforms, like sort of rotating things, placing things within a world. Like, very similar things to Unity, but with a lot more colors. And there's nothing you'll learn in the process of learning the MakerPens that will be wasted if you then try and go and learn Studio.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Like,
The MakerPen is just a great foundation for Studio, which, in a sense, to answer the question, the MakerPen is, in a full technicality, much easier to learn than Studio. But by learning it, it then makes Studio just as easy.
Yeah,
I'd argue you kind of need to know the MakerPen to work with RecRoom Studio. It's kind of required, I would say.
Yeah,
So
sure.
start there.
for sure.
Yeah.
yeah.
I tried to learn Unity for like a year off of YouTube videos and tutorials, and then gave up and took a community college class. So,
Yeah.
but,
So while you're waiting for the auto access to go through on your account after you meet requirements, just go sit in some rooms, work on stuff. Keep in mind you can still access all of RecRoom Studio even if you don't have full access, and the only limitation you have is just uploading it publicly.
Totally. I've got a bunch of people asking if they can take classes from folks up here.
Well, this one is still in the works, but it's going to be going through in the most recent round of classes that go up. But I've been working on. There isn't a strict pipeline for RS classes yet. The class reporting system requires you to do a lot of stuff still in RecRoom itself. But I'll be doing a hybrid class with AKKR123 starting next month that will get you up to speed with the basics of both MakerPen and Studio and the interoperability between them, if you just don't know where to start and you prefer the class style format. I'll be posting more about it in the Studio Discord once we've got all the details finalized.
Gotcha. Yeah, Kooks has great tutorial videos. Jay's put a few up as well. Also, we occasionally jump into the RecRoom Studio Discord to help people out correctly. So, yeah, we've got like a voice chat on there. So we've got a question about what's the most inventive thing you've made with circuits in a studio room?
There's a fun little aspect. I mean, that's a very broad question because there are so many more things that Studio lets you do with circuits, because everything you do in Studio, if you want it to happen dynamically, is still circuits driven. Like, you can't separate the two. But one thing I've been loving especially is the fact that we can now we have access to custom physics materials. One thing I love doing is just messing around and trying to make like custom vehicles and silly contraptions. And I used to, once upon a time in RecRoom, the only thing we had with a non-standard physics material was a bowling ball. And so to try and make custom vehicles in RecRoom, I would trap a bowling ball in a MakerPen object with the underside of it exposed, so that you could, and then put 4 of them in the object, so it would slide along the ground on the bowling balls, and try and move it with force, sliding along the bowling balls.
This is like first generation mouse technology right here on a car.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh man.
The trouble was the bowling balls would usually escape, so it wasn't a very stable
wait.
rig, but it was a lot of fun to play with.
It's like the ball wheel car from that movie with Will Smith. Oh my god. I like
That's exactly what it was. But now we have custom physics materials, and that's opened up a whole new toolkit. Like I've made trains that just sort of slide along the tracks, or like little bike style things that will just move along entirely using the physics engine. Because now I can make things that are slippery in any shape, and that just opened up a whole new playground to work with.
Oh, I haven't even touched physics materials. Wow,
Yeah,
that's
me
like,
Oh, dude, if you got any questions, let me know. There's so much.
oh man, yeah, I'll have to talk to you about
Don't
that.
ask me.
What's the most ambitious thing? I'm gonna steal some of Jay's thunder here, but like some of the UI stuff that I've been working on, since that's like my background is like in UI design. Being able to do that in RecCon Studio, like working in Figma, which is like a industry standard vector-based tool used a lot for UX design. I could take a lot of designs for UI in that and bring them right into RecRoom through RecRoom Studio. And one of the cool things that I got set up with the help of Jay was the render texture. So you can bring in other cameras and then have them rendered to other textures, and then have those textures pop up and show up for users. This is kind of how you can make like a mirror and stuff like that in RecRoom. And so I have one so that like when you activate a little like hologram UI, it takes a quick snapshot of you and then puts it into the background of the UI. So it kind of personalizes the UI for you a bit more while you get to select your like spell sets and stuff for, this is in Magic. So you get like an image of what you look like, so it's personalized to you, and you know that this is about you and the spells that are assigned to you, and then you have a UI that you can physically touch and poke and select things with. It's really awesome.
Oh wow. And then kind of building off that whole render texture stuff, I definitely was not in the Rec Room Studio Discord watching you guys work on that, trying to kind of piece together how it was done, do it myself. But I ended up creating a system recently that utilizes the same render texture system of just kind of fake snapshot of the player and be able to place it there. But I've created a way to be able to sync it along every single player in the room and have a wacky collection of animators and render textures to create a HUD-based leaderboard that showcases all of the players that are like in the top 5, and it's based on like how many kills you have in the game and how many points, and it'll resort itself as players change and like scoot their position on the leaderboard based on who's got the X amount of points and stuff, so you can see the images of all the other people in the game and see who's winning and who's losing and stuff like that, and work your way up that leaderboard. And it works in real time with that instance that you're in. So as the round is going on, you're like, I'm still in second place, and you can see your little photo right up there. It's been a really, really crazy system with all like the sorting being done inside CV2, and it's got to pass all those things on to the other players. But I'm almost there and getting it all working with players leaving and joining and stuff like that. But once this thing's finished, it'll be like one of my favorite little HUD things that I've ever created.
DJ's also been doing some crazy stuff with HUD stuff. I don't know if you want to talk about that at all.
I mean, HUD stuff.
Well, I mean,
not
like your
too
mini map
much.
that you have for like for Royale.
Oh, do you mean the compass up on the top?
The compass, yeah, the whole UI that pops out and it has like a map of everything. And you can see your teammates and stuff on it. Like it's huge.
Yeah,
it's
so
an awesome thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so for Last Man Standing, we have every player has a backpack that they have on their back. When they grab it, it pops up kind of like your watch menu. Just a menu pops up in front of you, and it's basically the entire game menu. Like you can see all the current game details, like how many players are alive and stuff like that. But you also have a complete map of the entire island, and you can see where you are on the island and all your teammates as well. So it's definitely pretty cool.
It's really cool. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Jay, you want to talk about CV2 cleverness you accomplished in the studio room?
Not really, because most of this, I say most, pretty much all the CV2 in Murder v3 was done by Cryptic Creator and just a little Kiwi, so I had nothing almost to do with it, and I don't want to steal their thunder.
Sure.
Thanks.
Totally. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you for everybody attending.